The calculus professor called on the quiet woman in the back row, his smirk daring her to fail. "Miss Callahan, solve this equation." The room went silent. At 38, Evelyn Callahan was twice the age of most of her classmates. Everyone thought she was out of place. What no one knew was that Evelyn had been solving advanced mathematics since she was 12. She rose slowly, clutching her notebook, and walked to the board. The professor expected embarrassment. Instead, he was about to witness brilliance. Evelyn had returned to Westmore University after 20 years away. Life had forced her to abandon her education, but the passion for mathematics never left. She worked in accounting to support her daughter, secretly filling notebooks with complex formulas at night. Now, with her daughter grown, Evelyn was finally finishing what she had started. Her professor, Dr. Howard Garner, was famous for being brilliant but merciless. On the first day, his eyes lingered on Evelyn like she didn't belong. His questions to her were harsher, his tone sharper, his dismissals obvious. Whispered judgments filled the classroom. Why was a middle-aged woman here? Could she even keep up? But Evelyn never wavered. She wrote, calculated, and quietly corrected mistakes in the professor's lectures in the margins of her notes. When Garner noticed, he pounced. "You disagree with my method, Miss Callahan?" "No, sir, just taking notes." "Then perhaps you'll share your thoughts with the class tomorrow," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. The challenge was set. At a faculty colloquium, Evelyn sat quietly in the back. When Dr. Garner presented his research, she noticed inefficiencies in his approach. Ways to simplify the sequence. Professor Harriet Powell, watching Evelyn's notes, encouraged her. "You see another way, don't you?" Evelyn hesitated, but before she could answer, Garner himself confronted her. "Care to enlighten us, Miss Callahan? Surely your accounting experience has prepared you for multidimensional calculus." His tone dripped with mockery. Every eye turned toward her. Evelyn could have left, but the part of her that had spent decades solving equations in the dark refused. "If you have a chalkboard," she said steadily, "I'll demonstrate." The next day, word had spread. Students packed into room 307, buzzing with anticipation. Garner introduced her mockingly. "Miss Callahan has volunteered to share her alternative approach." Evelyn stepped to the board. First, she wrote out the traditional 12-step solution. Then calmly, she began her method. Step by step, she reduced the process to just 7 operations. Her voice grew stronger as the chalk flew across the board. At first, students smirked. Then their expressions shifted to shock. Whispers spread. "Is she actually right?" Garner interrupted. "You've skipped essential steps." "No," Evelyn replied. "I've made them unnecessary." The room was silent as she circled the final solution, elegant, efficient, and correct. Dr. Powell stepped forward. "What you've just seen resembles a method published last year in the Journal of Mathematical Analysis. It caused a stir for its brilliance. The author published under the name E.C. Reynolds." She looked directly at Evelyn. "That's you, isn't it?" Gasps filled the room. Evelyn nodded. "Yes, I published under a pseudonym. Without credentials, I knew my work wouldn't be taken seriously." The class exploded with whispers. "You're E.C. Reynolds. My advisor made us study your papers. They said it was the future of computational theory." Garner's smugness collapsed into disbelief. "Why are you here then? If you're Reynolds, you could be lecturing instead of sitting in my classroom." Evelyn's reply was simple. "Because I want the credentials to match the knowledge. Because my daughter finally has her chance at college and now it's my turn. I've spent 20 years learning in stolen moments. I want to do it properly." For the first time, the professor had no words. Within weeks, everything changed. Students once skeptical now sought Evelyn's help. Study groups formed around her. Professors who ignored her now introduced themselves. And Dr. Garner, who once tried to humiliate her, began treating her with professional respect, even asking her opinion on his research. "Miss Callahan," he said one day, "your paper on nonlinear equations, page 42, there's a section I'd like to discuss." The students exchanged stunned glances. Garner wasn't challenging her anymore. He was consulting her. Behind the scenes, Professor Powell pressed him further. "She'll need a thesis advisor, and you're the best fit." "You're suggesting me, after I tried to drive her out?" "Precisely. You've seen your bias. Now you can challenge her fairly." Months later, Evelyn stood at the front of a packed lecture hall. This time she wasn't a student at the board. She was the keynote speaker. The mysterious E.C. Reynolds had finally stepped into the light. Her lecture was clear, brilliant, and inspiring. Even non-specialists followed her explanations with awe. When the applause erupted, Dr. Garner was the first on his feet. "Congratulations, Evelyn," he said afterward. "That was masterful." For the first time, he used her first name. For the first time, he admitted, "My assessment of you was profoundly incorrect." Evelyn smiled gently. "In mathematics, we revise our hypotheses when new data contradicts them. That's not failure. That's progress." Garner nodded, humbled. He had set out to humiliate her, but in the end it was Evelyn Callahan who taught him the greatest lesson of his career. Final note for viewers, optional call to action. If this story moved you, remember, brilliance doesn't always wear the face we expect. Have you ever been underestimated or seen someone's hidden talent shine? Share your story in the comments.